Tried to steal an ATM while on furlough by a judge. Thanks for joining us on the KOAM News at Noon. I'm Chris Warner. Police say Benjamin Whitaker took off from the jail in Montgomery County, Kansas after being released on furlough. He's now back in jail after being caught this morning in Yates Center. Deputies believe he's not only tied to the attempted theft of an ATM in Parsons that was chained to a pickup truck, but also behind the theft of the truck and has connections to shooting in Coffeyville in Independence. Police say an undisclosed amount of cash was stolen from the ATM. It's really cloudy. I was hoping for a little more sunshine, but it feels nice outside.
You just didn't go far enough north.
I'll have to hit the road after this.
You're going to have to hit the road for a while, unfortunately.
Okay, maybe I'll just take a nap instead.
Nah, we'll just wait for it to break. Later on this afternoon, Mr. Warner, we're going to get a peek of sunshine, but as you alluded to, it definitely has been a mostly cloudy morning, and that's how we're going to start our afternoon as well. But, as Chris mentioned, 46 degrees for a late January afternoon. Hey, we can't beat that. Humidity has dropped to 73%, positive aspect, able to get rid of that early morning fog. Now, we are cooler up to the north, even though we're seeing the clouds begin to part. Only 39 in Yates Center in Independence compared to the 46s that we see in Neosho. And my good friend Mike checking in with me from Goodman, where he says it's 45 degrees. But only feels like 40. Now, after this sunshine does kick in, we'll actually end up in the low to mid 50s. We're not quite done yet with our warm-up, so that'll be delightful. And then overnight, get rid of some of those clouds. But of course, what does that do? Yeah, sends us back down just about to the freezing mark. But Chris, we've got good news on the horizon here as we head into the weekend. Things are not looking too bad. We're going to break down what's coming up next week, though, when I see you in just a bit. All right, Michael, thank you. Finally done with the fog. Now we can talk about several nice days, which, by the way, we just did. Need to skip ahead here. I'll be back. He'll be back. I'm coming back, folks.
This is what happens when you wake up early and you're not prepared. Well, as states move into the next steps of COVID vaccine rollout plans, many people have questions about how to get the vaccine and where to go. In Missouri, the state has set up a website that provides a map of vaccine providers in your area. When it comes to making an appointment, that depends on the provider. However, most have online registration available. But officials say it's not as simple as it seems because there's not any of the vaccine available right now.
It's a waiting game, but with the anticipation that more vaccine will become available as the supply chains increase.
We have links to contact information and resources regarding vaccines in this story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Coffeyville, Kansas mourns the loss of Aaron Flores, the head football coach of Coffeyville Community College. Officials say Flores passed away from COVID-19 complications. He was 50 years old. Well, there's a new screening tool helping healthcare providers fight COVID-19, and the company making it is based just down the road in Parsons, Kansas. It's a new kind of scratch and sniff card made by Sensible Solutions. It helps determine if an employee or resident's sense of smell is intact when they come on the property. The new coronavirus screening tool has already helped prevent an outbreak in a nursing home in Neodesha.
The scratch and sniff tests have shown that people are asymptomatic with every other symptom. They don't have fever, they don't have a cough, they don't have shortness of breath, but they suddenly realize they've lost their sense of smell, or their sense of smell has changed in some way.
The scratch and sniff testing cards have already helped Morningstar staff identify an employee who was later diagnosed with coronavirus. And the U.S. death toll from COVID-19 climbs past 406,000. Efforts to vaccinate the population are starting to hit a wall with some states. David Bignog is at a vaccination site in Michigan State University in East Lansing.
As vaccination sites get bigger and busier around the U.S., more elected officials are saying the same thing to the federal government.
Double, triple what you're sending us. We're ready to provide the vaccines.
That's the Detroit mayor, Mike Duggan. He says he has the full capability to get his city fully vaccinated in 3 months. But he's just not getting enough vaccine to do it.
We've got the convention parking structure where we could handle 25,000 vaccinations a week. And right now we're scheduling 6,000. We have Pfizer right up the street in Kalamazoo, and they tell us they've got vaccines the federal government hasn't purchased, but their agreement will let them sell them to the states.
So far, only 22 states and the District of Columbia have used more than half of the doses they've received. But remember, both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines require 2 shots. And to make sure they have that second shot set aside, some officials are halting new vaccinations. That's exactly what happened at Baptist Health in Miami. They canceled all appointments for their first vaccinations because their expected allocation did not arrive this week. In San Francisco, officials say they're going to run out of doses today. In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio says they have the capacity to vaccinate 300,000 people a week. But they're going to begin to run out of doses today, too.
We've had to tell 23,000 New Yorkers who had an appointment this week that they will not be able to get that appointment for lack of supply.
Rivka Press-Schwartz was one of those who lost her appointment. Schwartz is a high school administrator in the Bronx.
It creates anxiety and maybe even a little bit of a sense of panic. I don't quite understand scheduling appointments for which you didn't have doses.
Fair point. Listen, regarding what the mayor of Detroit said about Pfizer being right up the road and having more vaccines that they could sell to the state of Michigan, but they won't, we reached out to Pfizer, which said, hey, listen, we'll be more than happy to sell to Michigan, but we need the federal government to give us the approval to do so. The Biden administration says next month they're going to start shipping vaccines directly to local community pharmacies around the country, and that should make a big difference. David Begno, CBS News, East Lansing, Michigan.
The one bright spot is Puerto Rico, where the territory says it's administering 100% of the doses it receives every week from the federal government. Topping World Watch, a fire breaks out at the world's largest vaccine manufacturer. It happened at the Serum Institute, that's located in India. 3 people were rescued and no injuries reported. This is actually a new facility in the process of being built to increase production of COVID-19 vaccines. The fire did not affect existing operations or the stockpile of 50 million doses that were on hand. The Serum Institute is under contract to make 1 billion doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. And let's look at today's top stories and weather all in the first 7 minutes. The KOAM News at noon, up next.
It's President Biden's first full day in office. I'm Skyler Henry in Washington with the rollout of a new national strategy to respond to the coronavirus pandemic.
And later, how somebody awoke to find out they became a multi-millionaire overnight. Up in the White House for the first time this morning, he's kicking off his first full day in office with a packed agenda, but much of today's focus will be on taking on the coronavirus pandemic. Skyler Henry has more details from Capitol Hill.
President Joe Biden began his first full day in office with a virtual prayer service.
Amen.
The new president is focusing on the nation's COVID-19 response. This afternoon, signing 10 executive orders which will, among other things, provide guidance to safely reopen schools, provide up to 100 million vaccine doses by the end of April, and invoke the Defense Production Act to enable that goal.
The big issue here, which may seem obvious to many, is supply. We need more supply of not just the vaccines, but the materials to get them in the arms of Americans to effectively get this done.
President Biden will also be meeting with Dr. Anthony Fauci and his coronavirus team. President Biden says today's executive actions will help, but acknowledges he will need Congress's help to achieve these goals.
Long way to go. These are just executive actions. They are important, but we're going to need legislation for a lot of the things we're going to do.
Already, there is pushback from Senator Mitt Romney and other GOP senators to the president's proposed $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package.
We just passed a program with over $900 billion in it. I'm not looking for a new program in the immediate future.
The White House says President Biden plans to meet with congressional leaders soon to discuss how to move the package forward. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The White House also says it will bring back the daily White House press briefings. Missouri Southern's Board of Governors meets to prioritize projects around the school, including a plan to repair and reopen the Taylor Performing Arts Center. The board wants the project to be listed as a critical priority and to add the remediation of the balcony stairwell to the project. The board also talked about the possibility of adding new degree programs.
Over the past few years, we have really focused on developing certificates, so companion certificates, which are 3 to 5 classes in a related area that students can stack on top of their baccalaureate degrees. And we've also focused a lot on development of new graduate degrees, master's degrees.
The board hopes that with state support, the Taylor Performing Arts Center will reopen in 2022. Well, still to come on the KOAM News at Noon, everybody's favorite, Mr. Food.
I bet you can't say I love Fluffernutter 3 times fast with a mouthful of Fluffernutter. Grab a glass of milk. We're headed down memory lane.
I think he's right, I can't. But first, Michael Hayslip returns to see if he can say Fluffernutter with your complete forecast.
Even with the overcast skies for our Thursday, already able to cruise right above our average temperature. We're going to make it into the mid-50s here by the time it's over. Let's see a little colored contour. Thought that was a little bit interesting, and that's why we have our cooler temperatures up to the northwest. Still holding on to the high 30s there in Yates Center and Iola compared to mid-40s that were running down through southwest Missouri and northeast Oklahoma. Still nothing to complain about, though, as all the precipitation that came in out of the southwest has really stayed down to the south of us. Warmer temps down there, and they do have a slight chance for just a little bit of flooding as this thing just continues to train out of really Mexico, across Texas, and just wants to take that same path to the mid-Atlantic. But our dividing line doesn't even make it to central Arkansas and Oklahoma. Now, unfortunately, the cloud cover does. Starting to see a little bit of break there to the far northern portion of the 4 states. And really, you get out of our highlighted counties, you get up to Kansas City, they're having a sunshiny Thursday. We're going to get a little peak. We're working at least in that right direction, and that's why we'll get a little afternoon warm up as well. Now, along with the cloud cover breaking up, of course, that also means our temperatures are going to dip back down right at the freezing mark here by the time we get to tomorrow morning. Kind of got real lucky this morning, the fact that we were able to sit there in the high 30s and low 40s. Now, as we push through future track, we don't have to worry about any precipitation really until we get into Saturday, and that's going to be Saturday afternoon, and it's really not going to amount to much to begin with. Then our big changes begin at the beginning of next week. So what we'll see on Saturday, little light rain south of I-44. Like I said, that doesn't amount to much. And Saturday, we're going to be up in the 50s. But what we're going to pay attention to here starting Sunday is a widespread rain system that's going to make its way out of the Gulf. Look at all that Gulf moisture right there. But here's the key factor. Able to stay up into the 50s, overnight lows above freezing, so we keep it as rain. But then we've got a cold front on the backside of it. Watch this thing push in from the northwest. And what that's going to do is present us with the possibility of additional snowfall by the time we get into Monday and we close out January with some very, very cool temperatures.
Very cool, but I guess appropriate for this time of year.
We're due for it. We all know that February is usually the month that Mother Nature likes to rear her fickle head and kind of send us a little bit of everything. And so the closer we get to February, we need to anticipate it.
We just need to get to spring. Let's just fast forward here a little bit.
Can we just go to July?
I'm down with that. Let's go to July. Let's hit July. Well, we'll see what we can do on that. We'll work on it. In the meantime, it's an annual tradition, excuse me, at Fort Scott National Cemetery, the placing of fresh holiday wreaths on each and every site. Employees of Peerless in Fort Scott, also a major sponsor of the KOAM Toy Box, spent yesterday at the cemetery to help clean up and preserve the national site that contained more than 6,000 wreaths over the holiday season. To make sure they observed social distancing, Peerless employees worked in shifts all day long, partnering with the Fort Scott School District to help preserve the memory of those who have served our country. And it is now time for us to take time to honor one of those 4 state heroes. This one just happens to be my very own father, Terry Newton Warner. He hails from Joplin, Missouri. That is not Terry Newton Warner, unfortunately, but I can tell you a little bit about him. The senior chief petty officer, he joined the Navy in 1955, served until 1977, served a tour in Vietnam and earned a number of honors, including 2 National Defense Service ribbons, 3 Good Conduct ribbons, and a Navy Occupation Service ribbon. So to Terry Warner, my father, we salute you, today's 4 state hero. Still ahead, Mr. Food. Welcome back. It's time for some Mr. Food, but before we get to that, we wanted to go back and run through the 4 state hero one more time, get the right guy up here. So this is my dad. Again, Terry Newton Warner. I grew up with the man. He spent 22 years in the Navy for a senior chief petty officer from 55 to 77. Another thing to mention, he did participate in the Dominic nuclear testing series back in the Navy. He watched them sink an entire island. And of course, he had a number of those commendations and medals, and we are very proud. I am very proud to recognize my father, Terry Newton Warner, today's 4-state hero. Well, now it is time for that Mr. Food, and peanut butter and marshmallow can be a hard combination to beat for snack time, I suppose, yeah. And it can be an even better dessert dish, and that's what Howard is baking up as a cake in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
I remember as a kid, I used to love Fluffernutter sandwiches. My brother and I would spread a thick layer of peanut butter on white bread and then top it with gobs of marshmallow cream. And you know what? After all these years, I still love them. So to share my ooey gooey nutty love for this combo, let me show you how easy it is to whip up a dessert that is based on these memories. The first thing we do is combine some peanut butter with sugar, a stick of butter that we melted, a bunch of eggs, vanilla, a good amount of flour, and a touch of salt. After giving this a good mix, we spread this into a baking dish and pop it in the oven. Once it comes out and it's still hot, we spoon on some marshmallow cream. After this cools, we'll top it with a simple peanut butter frosting that is so good, you could eat it by the spoonful. And when we cut this and take our first bite, get ready to do a happy dance. It's that good. Once you're done dancing, you may want to grab a glass of milk to wash it down with. To get the recipe for what we call...
What's your reason to call the law office of William L.
Today
Phelan?
we found an
hurt in a car accident.
Hurt
in an 18-wheeler accident.
Say, ooh, it's so good.
Mr. Food has a lot of other helpful tips, as you just saw there, and you can find this recipe for this right here, along with so many more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. All you got to do is go to our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at 4-state market prices. Well, while it wasn't any of us, the winning Powerball ticket worth $731 million belongs to someone who bought it in the struggling coal mining town of Lonaconing, Maryland. Now, we may never know who that person is, since Maryland is one of the states that allows winners to remain anonymous, but if it is somebody from in town, it's going to be hard to keep from going noticed, since only about 300 families live in Lonaconing. Now, the market that sold the winning ticket gets a nice chunk as well, a $100,000 bonus from the Maryland Lottery for selling the winning ticket. Now, of course, tomorrow, if you missed that, is the Mega Millions drawing, which is at $970 million after it went winless on Wednesday. I bought a few of those myself, just a few.
Best of luck to all of you.
Hopefully
Don't
somebody's
forget about
got to
us.
get it.
3 consecutive days of nice above average temperatures. Big changes coming on Sunday. Now, let's take a kick it over to Dow. What's coming up? 9 at 5.
A whole lot coming up at 5. While the pandemic has affected a lot of industries, one of the hardest hit is dry cleaners. We're going to find out how they're adapting to stay open. Plus, the state of Kansas is moving into phase 2 of vaccine distribution, making 1 million more Kansans eligible for vaccines. We're going to hear if our local counties are ready for the shift and how you can get on that vaccination list. And we take an inside look at the new Cox Hospital opening in Monette, Missouri. You join us for those stories, a lot more, of course. It's all coming up today on KOAM News at 5.
Well, Dal, Michael, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you at home for joining us for the news at noon. We'll be back here at 5 o'clock. Until then, have a great one.